Hello there, and welcome to the Sleepy Universe Night. Tonight we travel back, not across galaxies, but across time, into the quiet rooms and riverbank villages where the very first healers pressed crushed leaves and warmed clay against human skin. We will visit the banks of the Nile, where moldy bread was pressed into wounds centuries before anyone understood what a microbe was. We will sit in the shade of a Roman garden while an old farmer swears by his cabbage leaves. We will follow the careful hands of a Chinese physician tasting 100 herbs and the calm reasoning of a Greek philosopher-physician who believed the body could be coaxed back into balance. We will learn why honey never truly spoils, why a spiderweb was once tucked into a cut, and why a plant named after a mythical warrior still grows quietly in fields today. These are not myths. They are the earliest chapters of medicine, written not in ink but in mud, resin, and leaves. As we go, let your shoulders soften into whatever is holding you right now. Let your breathing slow, unhurried, the way a river slows as it nears the sea. Let your grip on today loosen, finger by finger, thought by thought. There is nowhere else you need to be. If you enjoy these gentle journeys, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. Let's begin. Egyptian healers pressed raw honey directly into open wounds. Long before anyone understood bacteria, the physicians of ancient Egypt were already fighting them. Honey has an extremely low water content, which means it draws moisture out of any microbe unlucky enough to land in it, effectively dehydrating it to death. It is also naturally acidic, and certain enzymes bees add during production slowly release small amounts of hydrogen peroxide, the same compound found in modern antiseptics. Egyptian medical texts, including the famous Ebers Papyrus, describe honey mixed with grease and lint and applied directly to cuts and burns. Picture a healer in a mud brick clinic beside the Nile, dipping a reed spatula into a clay jar of honey, spreading it slow and thick across a laborer's burned arm, trusting a substance that never seemed to spoil. They did not know why it worked. They only knew that it did, again and again, for generation after generation. It is a reminder that careful observation, repeated patiently across centuries, can arrive at real truth long before anyone has the words to explain it. Moldy bread was pressed into infected wounds thousands of years before antibiotics were discovered. This sounds almost unbelievable, yet it is documented in Egyptian and later Greek medical writing. Certain molds, including strains related to penicillium, produce natural antibacterial compounds as part of their own survival strategy, competing against bacteria for the same scraps of food. Ancient healers noticed that bread left to grow a particular kind of mold, when packed onto a wound, sometimes helped rather than harmed. They had no concept of fungi producing chemical weapons against microscopic rivals. They simply trusted the pattern they saw with their own eyes. It would be well over 3,000 years before Alexander Fleming, in 1928, isolated penicillin from a stray mold colony in his London laboratory and gave the phenomenon a name. What is so quietly astonishing is that the discovery was, in a sense, already alive in ancient hands, waiting patiently to be understood. Some truths do not arrive suddenly. They are rediscovered slowly, across thousands of years of human curiosity. Willow bark was chewed and poulticed for pain and fever along the Nile. The willow tree contains a compound called salicin, which the body converts into salicylic acid, the same chemical family that eventually gave rise to aspirin. Egyptian and later Sumerian texts describe willow leaves and bark ground into pastes and pressed against aching joints or fevered skin. The tree itself often grows bent and leaning near riverbanks, its roots gripping wet soil, its branches trailing in the current. There is something fitting about a plant that survives by bending with the water, becoming, thousands of years later, a symbol of relief from pain and inflammation. Modern aspirin was formally synthesized only in 1897 by chemists at Bayer. Yet the willow had been quietly offering the same relief since long before anyone wrote a single word of chemistry. What we call a modern breakthrough is often, underneath, an old friend rediscovered. The Ebers Papyrus lists more than 700 remedies, many of them poultices. Written around 1550 BCE and stretching over 20 meters when unrolled, the Ebers Papyrus is one of the oldest surviving medical documents in the world. Among its remedies are pastes made from castor oil, dates, onions, and animal fat, applied to everything from skin infections to digestive troubles. It blends genuine pharmacology with incantations and prayers too. Gods like Isis, since the ancient Egyptians did not draw a sharp line between medicine and the sacred. Imagine a scribe, centuries before the pyramids had even finished settling into the desert wind, copying these formulas by candlelight so they would not be lost. Some of the remedies described inside would not look out of place in a modern herbal dispensary. It is a reminder that the search for healing has always braided together careful observation and human hope in equal measure. Sumerian clay tablets record some of the very first written poultice instructions. In Mesopotamia, more than 4,000 years ago, scribes pressed wedge-shaped cuneiform symbols into wet clay to record medical formulas involving thyme, myrrh, and mustard, often mixed with beer or milk and applied as a paste. One tablet, sometimes called the oldest medical handbook in the world, lists dozens of remedies without any accompanying magic or prayer. Purely practical instructions, dosage after dosage. Picture the clay itself, soft and cool under a scribe's stylus, hardening slowly in the sun until it became a permanent record, one that would outlast the physician who wrote it by thousands of years. It is strange to think that the most ordinary material, mud from a riverbank, became the medium that preserved humanity's first attempts at written medicine. What is fragile in the moment can become permanent if it is shaped with enough care. Hippocrates treated poultices as tools for restoring balance, not simply covering a wound. The physician we now call the father of Western medicine, working in Greece around the 5th century BCE, believed the body was governed by 4 humors: blood, phlegm, yellow bile, and black bile, and that illness arose when these fell out of balance. Poultices made from barley, flaxseed, or various herbs were prescribed not just to soothe a specific injury, but to help draw out excess or restore equilibrium to the whole system. The humoral theory itself was eventually replaced by more accurate biological understanding, yet the instinct behind it, that the body is an interconnected whole rather than a collection of separate parts, still echoes through medicine today. There is something almost tender in imagining Hippocrates on the island of Kos, mixing herbs by hand, trying to read the language of a suffering body with nothing but attention and inherited knowledge. Even wrong theories, held with enough care, can still point towards something true. Dioscorides cataloged over 600 plants used in poultices and remedies across the ancient world. A Greek physician serving in the Roman army during the 1st century CE, Pedanius Dioscorides traveled widely and compiled his observations into a work called De Materia Medica, describing plants, their preparations, and their uses in extraordinary detail. It became the standard pharmacological reference for over 1,500 years, copied by hand across the Byzantine Empire, translated into Arabic, Latin, and eventually most European languages. Picture a soldier physician pausing on a dusty road through Asia Minor to examine an unfamiliar flowering herb, noting its scent, its texture, the way local people used it for fevers or wounds, then carrying that knowledge forward into a book that would outlive every empire he served. Few single texts in human history have shaped so much practical healing for so long. Knowledge, once written down with care, can travel further through time than the person who gathered it ever could. Yarrow was named after the mythical warrior Achilles, who was said to have used it on his soldiers' wounds. The botanical name for yarrow is Achillea millefolium, a direct reference to the Greek hero Achilles, who legend claims used the plant to stop his soldiers bleeding during the siege of Troy. Whether or not the myth reflects a real historical practice, yarrow does contain compounds that can help constrict blood vessels and reduce inflammation, and it has been used in wound poultices across many cultures for thousands of years, from ancient Greece to indigenous communities in North America. Its feathery, almost lace-like leaves seem too delicate for the job it was famous for. A plant built like a whisper doing the work of stopping a wound. It is a small, striking detail of history that even our oldest medical language still carries the memory of a battlefield inside a flower's name. Galen's medical writings shaped poultice practice in Europe for well over 1,000 years. Born in the Greek city of Pergamon and later working as a physician to Roman gladiators, Galen treated countless combat wounds firsthand, giving him unusually direct experience with trauma and healing. He wrote extensively on herbal poultices, wound care, and the humoral theory he inherited and expanded from Hippocrates, and his authority became so total that questioning his conclusions was, for centuries, considered almost heretical in European medicine. Some of his anatomical observations were mistaken, since dissection of humans was largely forbidden in his time, and he relied heavily on animal anatomy instead. Yet his practical wound care experience, gained tending gladiators in the arena infirmary, produced genuinely useful techniques that persisted for generations. Imagine a physician kneeling beside an injured gladiator, packing a wound with a carefully chosen poultice, learning in real time what worked and what did not. Authority and error can travel together through history, and it takes new evidence, patiently gathered, to eventually tell them apart. Cato the Elder believed cabbage could cure nearly every ailment, and pressed its leaves onto wounds and swellings. The Roman statesman Cato the Elder, writing in the 2nd century BCE, was so devoted to cabbage that he dedicated an entire section of his writing to its supposed healing powers, recommending it for wounds, digestive trouble, and even as a general tonic for long life. Modern nutrition science has found that cabbage does contain genuinely useful compounds, including antioxidants and anti-inflammatory agents, and warmed or crushed cabbage leaves are still used today in some traditions to relieve breast engorgement in nursing mothers. Picture a stern Roman senator, famous for ending every speech with a call to destroy Carthage, tending to his own garden with the same unwavering conviction, certain that this humble vegetable held the secret to health. Sometimes an old, insistent folk belief turns out to carry a grain of real truth buried inside its stubbornness. Frankincense and myrrh were prized in Roman and Egyptian wound care long before they became symbols of gift-giving. These aromatic resins, harvested by cutting the bark of trees native to the Arabian Peninsula and the Horn of Africa, were used across the ancient world not just for incense and embalming, but as antiseptic dressings for wounds, ground into pastes or dissolved in oil. Myrrh in particular contains compounds shown in modern research to have antimicrobial properties, which may explain why it was so consistently chosen across independent cultures separated by vast distances. Picture the resin oozing slowly from a cut in the bark, hardening in the desert air into amber-colored tears, harvested by hand and carried along incense routes stretching thousands of miles by camel caravan. Long before either substance became associated with a manger in a familiar story, they were simply trusted medicine, carried across deserts because people believed correctly that they helped the wounded heal. Shennong, the legendary Chinese emperor, is said to have tasted 100 herbs to test their medicinal properties. According to tradition, Shennong lived around 2800 BCE and personally sampled countless plants, sometimes suffering poisoning dozens of times in a single day, all in the name of discovering which herbs could heal and which could harm. Whether Shennong was a real historical figure or a symbolic composite of generations of early herbalists remains uncertain, but the text attributed to his legacy, the Shenang Benkao Jing, became a foundational pharmacological reference in Chinese medicine, describing hundreds of substances, including many still used in poultices and pastes today. There is something almost unbearably vivid about the image. A single figure willingly tasting poison after poison, so that others would not have to guess. Whether myth or memory, it captures something true about the earliest medicine everywhere, that someone, somewhere, had to risk being the first to find out. The Huangdi Nijing framed illness as a disruption of balance between yin and yang, guiding how poultices were chosen. This foundational text of Chinese medicine, compiled over centuries and traditionally attributed to the Yellow Emperor, describes health as a dynamic equilibrium between opposing forces, and treatment, including topical poultices made from herbs like mugwort, ginger, and various roots, aimed to restore that equilibrium rather than simply address a single symptom. A cooling poultice might be chosen for what was understood as excess heat in the body, while a warming one addressed excess cold. A framework quite different from Western humoral theory, yet strikingly similar in its core intuition that illness reflects imbalance rather than isolated malfunction. Picture an ancient Chinese physician pressing two fingers to a patient's wrist, reading the pulse the way a musician reads a trembling string, before selecting exactly which warmed paste to apply and where. Different civilizations, working entirely apart from one another, kept arriving at strikingly similar ideas, as though balance itself were a truth written into the body from the beginning. Sushruta, an ancient Indian physician, described detailed surgical and poultice techniques nearly 26 centuries ago. Often called the father of surgery, Sushruta compiled the Sushruta Samhita in India time around the 6th century BCE, a text describing over 100 surgical instruments, techniques for wound closure, and formulas for medicinal pastes applied after operations to reduce infection and encourage healing. His descriptions of skin grafting, particularly for reconstructing noses lost to punishment or injury, are remarkably advanced for their time and are sometimes cited as an early ancestor of modern plastic surgery. Picture a physician in ancient India, working by oil lamp, carefully layering a turmeric and herbal paste over a fresh incision, guided by generations of accumulated observation rather than any microscope. It is humbling to realize how much genuine surgical sophistication existed in the ancient world, built entirely from patient trial, careful notation, and the courage to keep trying. Turmeric has been used in poultices across South Asia for thousands of years because of its natural antimicrobial properties. The active compound in turmeric, curcumin, has been studied extensively in modern laboratories and shown to have anti-inflammatory and antibacterial effects, lending real scientific weight to a tradition that stretches back through Ayurvedic medicine for millennia. A simple paste of turmeric mixed with water or oil was, and still is in many households, pressed onto cuts, bruises, and skin infections, its deep golden color staining the skin temporarily as it works. There is something almost theatrical about it, a healing paste bright enough to look like captured sunlight, applied gently to a wound in the quiet of a home rather than a clinic. It is a striking example of a remedy that traveled from ancient kitchen gardens directly into modern pharmacological research, arriving in laboratories only after surviving thousands of years of lived experience. Neem has been called the village pharmacy of India for its extraordinarily wide range of traditional poultice uses. Nearly every part of the neem tree, its leaves, bark, and oil, has been used in South Asian traditional medicine for treating skin infections, insect bites, and inflammation, and modern research has identified numerous compounds within the plant, including azadirachtin, with genuine antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory activity. Crushed neem leaves, sometimes mixed with turmeric, were pressed into a paste and applied directly to irritated skin, a combination still common in households today. Picture a neem tree standing at the center of a village, its bitter leaves gathered not out of desperation, but out of quiet, accumulated confidence, generation after generation trusting the same branches for the same relief. Few single trees anywhere in the world have accumulated so much sustained practical trust across so many centuries of ordinary daily use. Sandalwood paste was pressed onto the skin in ancient India to cool fevers and calm inflamed skin. Ground from the fragrant heartwood of the sandalwood tree, this pale paste was valued not only for its distinctive scent, but for genuine cooling and anti-inflammatory properties, now partially confirmed by modern research into its essential oil compounds. It was applied across the forehead and body during fevers, and its cultivation became so significant that sandalwood groves were carefully protected and regulated by ancient Indian rulers, since mature trees can take decades to develop their prized fragrant core. Picture the wood being slowly ground against a wet stone, releasing its pale, milky paste and unmistakable scent into a warm room, applied by careful hands to a fevered child's skin. It is a striking thought, that patience measured in decades, the slow growth of a single tree, could ultimately be distilled into a few cool, fragrant moments of relief. Avicenna's canon of medicine carried poultice traditions from the ancient world into medieval learning across 3 continents. Written in the early 11th century by the Persian physician Ibn Sina, known in the West as Avicenna, the canon of medicine synthesized Greek, Roman, Persian, and Indian medical knowledge into a single, extraordinarily influential text, including detailed instructions for poultices, plasters, and topical remedies. It remained a standard medical textbook in European universities for over 500 years, translated into Latin and studied well into the 17th century, an almost unimaginable span of influence for a single work. Picture a young medical student in medieval Bologna or Padua, centuries after Avicenna's death, poring over a Latin translation of his careful instructions, unknowingly connected across vast distances of language and geography to a Persian scholar's original ambition to gather all known medicine into one place. Some ideas, once written down clearly enough, refuse to stay confined to a single century or a single civilization. The mild antiseptic action in honey comes from an enzyme bees themselves add during its production. Worker bees produce an enzyme called glucose oxidase, which, when the honey is diluted by moisture such as a wound's own fluid, slowly generates small, steady amounts of hydrogen peroxide. This is different from simply pouring peroxide onto a wound, since the release is gradual and gentle rather than an immediate chemical shock, which may be part of why honey dressings were historically well tolerated even by sensitive or damaged skin. Certain varieties, particularly Manuka honey from New Zealand, contain an additional antibacterial compound called methylglyoxal, giving them an extra layer of protective strength that modern medicine has only recently begun to fully appreciate. It is quietly remarkable that a jar of honey sitting undisturbed in a kitchen cupboard holds inside it a slow, patient chemistry, one that ancient healers trusted by instinct long before anyone could name a single molecule involved. Propolis, the resin bees gather to seal their hives, was used by ancient civilizations as a wound dressing in its own right. Bees collect this sticky resin from tree buds and sap flows, then use it to seal cracks and reinforce their hives against invaders and infection, a substance so effective at keeping the hive interior sterile that scientists sometimes call it nature's own antiseptic caulking. Egyptian embalmers used propolis in their preservation techniques, and Greek and Roman physicians, including Dioscorides, described applying it directly to wounds and abscesses to prevent infection and encourage healing. Picture thousands of bees working in perfect coordination, each contributing a tiny smear of resin gathered from a distant tree, slowly building a barrier strong enough to keep an entire colony safe from disease. It is worth pausing on the strange beauty of it, that some of humanity's oldest medicine was borrowed directly from an insect's own careful architecture of survival. Kaolin clay was pressed onto skin across multiple ancient civilizations for its remarkable ability to draw out impurities. This fine, soft, pale clay, found in riverbeds and weathered rock across Africa, Asia, and the Americas, has a unique molecular structure that allows it to absorb oils, toxins, and excess moisture from the skin, a property still used today in modern cosmetic and pharmaceutical products. Ancient healers in regions from China to West Africa independently discovered and applied this same clay for insect bites, rashes, and minor wounds, mixing it with water into a simple, cooling paste. There is something almost meditative in picturing a healer kneeling beside a riverbank, gathering handfuls of pale clay from the same earth that would later be shaped into pottery, trusting the ground itself to draw sickness gently out of the body. Sometimes the most powerful remedy is not something added to the body, but something patient enough to quietly take something away. Aloe vera was cultivated and applied to burns and wounds as early as 4,000 years ago in Mesopotamia and Egypt. Sumerian clay tablets and later Egyptian papyri both describe the thick, gel-filled leaves of aloe vera being split open and pressed directly against burns, insect stings, and irritated skin, a practice that modern research has largely validated, since the gel contains compounds that support skin hydration and may help calm inflammation. Egyptian queens, according to enduring tradition, valued aloe as part of their beauty regimen, though its more practical use as an everyday household remedy for burns from cooking fires was almost certainly far more common among ordinary people. Picture a leaf snapped from a hardy desert plant that needs almost no water to survive, splitting open to reveal a cool, clear gel completely at odds with the harsh, dry world it grew in. There is a quiet irony in a plant built for drought becoming, for thousands of years, one of humanity's most trusted sources of soothing moisture. Garlic was crushed into poultices across nearly every ancient civilization that encountered it, from Egypt to China. Garlic contains a compound called allicin, released only when its cells are crushed or damaged, which has genuine antibacterial and antifungal properties confirmed repeatedly in modern laboratory studies. Egyptian laborers building the pyramids were reportedly given garlic as part of their rations to maintain strength and ward off illness, while ancient Chinese and Indian medical traditions independently arrived at using crushed garlic pastes for infections, insect bites, and respiratory complaints. Picture a bulb pulled fresh from dry soil, its papery skin peeled away, released only at the moment of crushing into a sharp, pungent chemistry that had been sealed quietly inside all along. It is a small but telling detail of history that one of the most ordinary vegetables in any kitchen carried, hidden inside its cells, a genuine chemical defense that civilizations across the world kept independently discovering for themselves. Onion poultices were a nearly univ. Arsal folk remedy for earaches and respiratory congestion across the ancient and medieval world. A warmed, roasted onion, wrapped in cloth and pressed against the ear or chest, was used from ancient Mesopotamia through medieval Europe and into more recent folk tradition. And while rigorous modern clinical evidence for its effectiveness remains limited, onions do contain sulfur compounds with mild antimicrobial properties, and the simple warmth of the poultice itself likely provided genuine, if modest, comfort. There is something tender about the image. An anxious parent slicing an onion in the dim light of a hearth, wrapping it carefully in cloth, pressing it gently against a feverish child's ear, trusting in a remedy passed down from a grandmother who trusted it from her own. Not every ancient remedy needs to be perfectly proven to be worth remembering. Some endure simply because they carried real comfort forward, one careful hand to the next. Ginger was used as a warming poultice across Ayurvedic and Chinese medicine to ease pain and improve circulation. Fresh ginger root, grated or crushed into a warm paste, was applied to sore joints and aching muscles in both Indian and Chinese medical traditions, chosen deliberately for its perceived warming quality, believed to draw blood flow toward the area and ease stagnation. Modern research has identified compounds in ginger, including gingerol, with genuine anti-inflammatory properties, offering a plausible biological explanation for relief that ancient physicians attributed to more abstract concepts of balance and energy flow. Picture the sharp, bright scent released the moment the root is grated, filling a small room with warmth before the paste has even touched the skin. It is worth noticing how often the oldest medicine in the world reached first for scent and sensation, trusting the body's own immediate response as a kind of evidence long before any laboratory existed to confirm it. Comfrey earned the folk name Nitbone for its long reputation in helping heal fractures and deep tissue injuries. Native across Europe and parts of Asia, comfrey contains a compound called allantoin, which modern research suggests may help stimulate cell growth and tissue repair, lending real substance to a name that farmers and healers had already given the plant centuries before any chemist identified why it worked. Crushed comfrey leaves and roots were made into thick poultices and wrapped tightly around sprains, bruises, and suspected fractures, sometimes left to harden slightly around the injured limb, almost like an early, improvised cast. Picture a broken forearm wrapped carefully in warm, green paste and cloth, the patient sitting still by necessity, trusting a plant whose very name promised what the body most needed. Modern medicine now advises caution with internal use of comfrey due to certain compounds that can affect the liver. Yet its traditional topical use for closed injuries remains a striking example of folk wisdom, offered a name, arriving remarkably close to the truth. Plantain leaf, common and often overlooked as a roadside weed, was one of the most widely used wound poultices in the ancient and medieval world. Not related to the banana-like fruit of the same name, this low, broad-leafed plant grows almost everywhere human settlements have existed, and its leaves, when crushed or chewed and applied to cuts, stings, and rashes, were trusted across ancient Europe, Asia, and later the Americas for their soothing and mildly antimicrobial properties. Anglo-Saxon medical texts specifically praised it, and Native American communities independently discovered and relied on related plantain species for very similar purposes. There is something quietly moving about a plant so common it grows unnoticed along footpaths and farm edges, offered so little attention that most people today would call it simply a weed, yet trusted for thousands of years by people who had nothing else and found it enough. The most humble things, examined closely enough, are often the ones that endure the longest. Castor oil was warmed and applied in thick packs across Ayurvedic, Egyptian, and later Western folk medicine for abdominal discomfort. Pressed from the seeds of the castor bean plant, this thick, viscous oil was soaked into cloth, warmed, and pressed against the abdomen to ease digestive complaints and general discomfort. A practice documented in ancient Egyptian medical texts and Ayurvedic writings alike, and later revived with particular enthusiasm in 20th century American folk healing circles. The oil itself contains ricinoleic acid, a compound with documented anti-inflammatory properties, offering at least a partial biological explanation for centuries of consistent, independent use across cultures with no direct contact with one another. Picture warm cloth, heavy with oil, laid gently across a tired stomach in the quiet hours of evening, the scent faintly earthy, the warmth low to fade. It is one more example of an idea reached again and again by different hands across history, each one trusting the same slow, oily warmth for the same quiet relief. The Aztec and Maya civilizations developed extensive poultice traditions, using plants entirely unknown to the ancient civilizations of Europe, Asia, and Africa. Working in complete isolation from the Old World, Mesoamerican healers used the sap of the maguey plant, related to modern agave, applied to wounds and skin infections, alongside poultices made from ground corn, chili peppers, and various native herbs recorded in surviving texts like the Badianus manuscript, an Aztec herbal compiled shortly after European contact. Capsaicin, the compound that gives chili peppers their heat, has genuine pain-relieving properties when applied topically in the right concentration, a use that continues in modern pharmaceutical creams today. Picture an Aztec healer in the highlands of central Mexico, slicing into a thick maguey leaf to release its sap, working entirely independently from every remedy already described tonight, yet arriving at strikingly similar instincts about plants, pain, and the patient art of healing. Two hemispheres, separated by an ocean neither side knew existed, kept discovering strikingly similar truths, as though the human body itself were teaching the same lessons everywhere it was found. Baobab bark and leaves were used across traditional African medicine in poultices treating inflammation, fever, and skin infections. The baobab tree, sometimes called the tree of life for its extraordinary ability to store water and survive centuries of drought across the African savanna, has long provided bark and leaves ground into pastes for wounds and fevers in traditional medicine across many African cultures. Modern nutritional and pharmacological analysis has found baobab fruit and leaves to be remarkably rich in vitamin C and antioxidant compounds, lending genuine scientific support to practices that predate any written record on the continent. Picture the tree itself, its trunk swollen and vast, sometimes wide enough to hollow out and shelter inside, standing for what may be over 1,000 years in the same patch of dry earth. It seems fitting that a tree capable of outliving so many generations of people would also become, quietly, one of their most trusted sources of healing. Wine and vinegar were used by Roman military physicians to cleanse wounds before a poultice was ever applied. Roman army surgeons, tending to soldiers across the vast reach of the empire, regularly cleaned wounds with wine or vinegar before dressing them, a practice recorded in surviving medical writing and confirmed by archaeological finds of surgical tools at military forts stretching from Britain to the Middle East. Both substances are mildly acidic and have genuine antimicrobial properties, meaning this ancient battlefield habit likely reduced infection rates in a meaningful way, even though the Romans understood nothing of germ theory. Picture a field surgeon in a windswept frontier fort, pouring sharp, sour wine across a fresh sword wound before pressing on an herbal poultice, working with steady hands under enormous pressure, far from home. It is a striking thought that some of the most practical medical wisdom in history was refined not in quiet academies, but on the chaotic edges of empire, out of sheer necessity. Moxibustion, the practice of burning dried mugwort near or on the skin, developed alongside poultice traditions in ancient China as a way to direct warmth into the body. Mugwort, the same plant sometimes ground into poultices for its mild antiseptic and anti-inflammatory properties, was also dried, rolled, and burned close to specific points on the skin, believed to stimulate circulation and restore balance to the body's flow of energy. Archaeological and textual evidence suggests moxibustion developed alongside acupuncture more than 2,000 years ago. The two techniques often used together by the same physicians treating the same patient. Picture a small cone of dried herb glowing faintly in a dim room, its warmth guided with careful precision, smoke curling upward in the stillness. It is one more example of ancient Chinese medicine approaching the body not as a machine to be repaired, but as a living system to be gently, patiently coaxed back into harmony. Beeswax was blended into many ancient poultices and salves as a way to seal in moisture and protect healing skin. Used across Egyptian, Greek, and Roman wound care, beeswax provided a natural barrier that helped retain the moisture and active compounds of a poultice while shielding the injury from dirt and further irritation, a function remarkably similar to the role modern medical ointments still serve today. It was often blended with honey, herbs, and various oils into a single unified salve, combining several independently useful substances into one preparation applied a single motion. Picture a physician's hands, slightly sticky and fragrant, working a soft golden wax into a paste of crushed herbs, shaping something that would hold its form and its healing properties for hours against an open wound. Even in the ancient world, healers understood instinctively that a remedy needed not only the right ingredients, but the right structure to keep those ingredients where they were needed most. Sphagnum moss was used as a wound dressing across cultures separated by thousands of years and thousands of miles. From ancient Gaelic communities to native peoples of North America. This soft, absorbent moss, found across peat bogs and wetlands in the Northern Hemisphere, has a remarkable natural capacity to hold many times its own weight in liquid, while remaining mildly acidic, a combination that inhibits bacterial growth and made it an excellent wound-packing material long before anyone understood absorption or pH-independent traditions in Ireland, Scotland, Scandinavia, and among various indigenous nations in North America, all arrived at using this same unassuming moss for the same essential purpose, without any contact or shared knowledge between them. Picture a soft green carpet stretching across a quiet, waterlogged bog, unremarkable to the eye, holding inside its simple cellular structure a genuine and repeated medical usefulness. It is one of the clearest reminders in this entire history that healing knowledge did not need to travel between civilizations to arrive at the same quiet truth, again and again, wherever the same plant happened to grow. Frankincense was harvested by cutting into tree bark and collecting the resin as it slowly wept out and hardened in the sun. The trees that produce frankincense, primarily of the genus Boswellia, grow in some of the harshest environments on Earth, along the rocky coastlines of Yemen, Oman, and the Horn of Africa, thriving in conditions where few other plants survive. Harvesters would cut shallow wounds into the bark and return weeks later to collect the hardened, amber-colored tears of resin, a slow and deliberate process passed down through families for countless generations along the same ancient incense roots. Modern research has identified compounds in frankincense resin, including boswellic acids, with measurable anti-inflammatory effects, offering scientific footing for a substance whose value the ancient world understood purely through repeated experience. Picture a lone harvester working a rugged desert slope at dawn, patiently scoring the bark of a tree that has survived decades of drought, trusting a slow wound in the wood to eventually yield something worth an empire's trade routes. It is a striking thing that some of the most valuable substances in ancient medicine came only to those willing to wait patiently for the earth to heal itself into something useful. Myrrh, harvested in much the same painstaking way as frankincense, was so highly valued in the ancient world that it was sometimes worth more than its weight in gold. Drawn from a different but related desert tree, myrrh resin carries a darker, more bitter character than frankincense, and ancient Egyptian embalmers relied on it heavily in the preservation of the dead, while physicians across Greece, Rome, and the Arabian Peninsula turned to it for treating infected wounds and inflamed gums. Its antimicrobial compounds have since been studied and partially confirmed by modern laboratories, giving real substance to a reputation that ancient trade caravans had already built across thousands of miles of desert. There is something quietly remarkable in imagining the same slow tree wound, the same patient weeks of waiting, producing a substance trusted equally by the living for their wounds and by families preparing their dead for the next world. Hildegard von Bingen, a medieval German abbess, wrote detailed herbal poultice instructions that survived the collapse of much older medical knowledge in Europe. Living in the 12th century, Hildegard was a Benedictine abbess, composer, and visionary, whose written works included extensive medical and botanical guidance, describing remedies for wounds, fevers, and skin conditions drawn from the plants grown in her monastery's careful gardens. At a time when much of formal ancient medical knowledge had become scattered or lost in Western Europe following the fall of Rome, monastic communities like Hildegard's quietly preserved and practiced herbal healing, tending physic gardens behind stone walls while the wider world around them remained turbulent. Picture her walking slowly along neat rows of comfrey, chamomile, and sage inside a walled garden, gathering leaves with the same unhurried attention she brought to her music and her visions. It is a striking reminder that some of history's most careful medical knowledge survived not in grand academies, but in the quiet, disciplined patience of religious communities tending small gardens behind high walls. Monasteries across medieval Europe maintained physic gardens, specifically to grow the plants needed for poultices and remedies. These enclosed gardens, often laid out in careful geometric beds, held dozens of species selected for their medicinal properties, tended by monks and nuns who combined practical herbalism with the copying and preservation of older Greek and Roman medical texts. Because monasteries often served as the only source of organized medical care available to surrounding villages, monastic infirmaries became de facto hospitals, and their gardens supplied the raw materials for poultices treating everything from infected wounds to persistent coughs. Picture the hush of a cloister garden at dawn, dew still clinging to rows of sage and rue, a single monk moving quietly between the beds with a woven basket, gathering what the day's patients would need. Through centuries, sometimes remembered as a loss of knowledge, these small, disciplined gardens quietly kept an old, careful tradition of healing alive. Nicholas Culpeper defied the medical establishment of his time by publishing herbal remedies, including poultice recipes, in plain English rather than Latin. Writing in 17th century England, Culpeper believed that ordinary people, not just university-trained physicians who guarded their Latin texts jealously, deserved access to practical medical knowledge, and his herbal, first published in 1652, described the properties and preparation of hundreds of plants used in poultices, tinctures, and other remedies. His decision to translate this knowledge into the common language of ordinary households was considered radical, even dangerous, by the medical authorities of his day, who saw exclusive knowledge as a source of professional power. Picture A modest London printing house producing page after page of a book that a farmer's wife or village midwife could finally read and use directly, without needing to first pay a physician for translation. It is a quiet, important thread running through this whole history, that healing knowledge has always been strongest when it belongs to everyone, not only to those permitted to read it. Warm bread and milk poultices were a common household remedy for boils and abscesses across medieval and early modern Europe. Simple, cheap, and available in nearly every kitchen, this poultice was made by soaking stale bread in warm milk until it formed a soft paste, then wrapping it in cloth and pressing it against a boil to help draw it to a head, a technique still occasionally mentioned in home remedy traditions today. While modern medicine understands boils as localized bacterial infections best treated with proper drainage, and when needed, antibiotics, the moist heat of a bread poultice likely did provide some genuine comfort and may have gently encouraged natural drainage in less severe cases. Picture a mother in a small stone cottage, tearing yesterday's loaf into a bowl of warmed milk by firelight, her hands moving through a routine repeated so many times it required no thought at all. Not every old remedy needs to be dramatic to matter. Some of the most enduring medicine in history was simply whatever was already warm, already close at hand, and already trusted. Mustard plasters were used across Europe and later America to ease chest congestion, working through a distinct and sometimes uncomfortable chemistry. Ground mustard seed, mixed with flour and water into a paste, spread on cloth and pressed against the chest, releases a compound called allyl isothiocyanate when the seed cells are broken and moistened, producing a warming, sometimes intensely irritating sensation on the skin. This counterirritant effect was believed to draw blood flow toward the surface and away from congested lungs beneath, a theory that persisted from ancient Greek humoral medicine straight through to 20th century American households, where mustard plasters remained common well into living memory. Caution was always necessary, since if left on too long, the same chemistry that made it effective could cause real skin burns, a fact many old instructions warned about explicitly. Picture a child bundled in blankets by a coal fire, wincing slightly at the sharp heat spreading across their chest, trusting a grandmother's steady hands even through the discomfort. Some remedies endured not because they were gentle, but because, used carefully, they genuinely worked. Spiderwebs were pressed directly onto cuts across many folk traditions, an odd-sounding practice with a surprisingly reasonable explanation. Spider silk contains a protein structure that can help promote clotting, and its fine, dense mesh may have offered a rough scaffold encouraging blood to coagulate more quickly, which likely explains why this practice appeared independently in European, Chinese, and North American folk medicine, despite how unusual it sounds to modern ears. There were real risks. S, of course, since webs gathered from unclean environments could introduce infection rather than prevent it, which is part of why this particular remedy did not survive into modern clinical practice the way honey or willow bark did. Picture a farmer nicking a finger on a scythe blade, glancing up, and instinctively reaching for the thick web spun in the barn's rafters, trusting an old habit passed down without anyone quite remembering why it began. Not every old remedy holds up perfectly under modern scrutiny, and it is worth remembering that the history of medicine includes both its patient successes and its stranger, more uneven experiments. Slippery elm bark was used by numerous indigenous nations across eastern North America to soothe wounds, burns, and inflamed skin. The inner bark of the slippery elm tree, when moistened, becomes remarkably slick and mucilaginous, a texture that gives the tree its name and that indigenous healers, including Cherokee and other eastern woodland communities, recognized as genuinely soothing when applied to burns, wounds, and skin irritations. This same mucilage has since been studied for its coating and protective properties, and slippery elm remains available today in some modern herbal preparations, a rare example of an indigenous North American remedy that carried directly through colonization and into contemporary use largely unchanged. Picture bark peeled carefully from a living tree in a way meant not to kill it, moistened into a cool, slick paste, pressed gently against a child's burned hand beside a riverside camp. Knowledge held by indigenous communities across this continent was often dismissed or ignored by European colonizers, and it is worth pausing to recognize how much of it was, in fact, genuinely sound. Echinacea was used by Plains nations for centuries, before it became one of the most widely sold herbal supplements in the modern world. Indigenous peoples of the North American plains, including the Lakota and other nations, used echinacea root in poultices and chewed preparations for wounds, insect bites, snake bites, and infections, recognizing properties in the plant that 19th century European settlers eventually adopted, and that 20th century researchers began studying for genuine immune-supporting compounds. Its distinctive purple, drooping petals made it easy to identify across the wide grasslands where it grew, and its root, when chewed, produces a distinctive tingling numbness that indigenous healers had already connected to its medicinal potency long before any chemist could explain the sensation. Picture a wide, wind-blown prairie under an enormous sky, a single healer kneeling to dig carefully around the base of a purple-flowered plant, taking only what was needed and leaving the rest to seed the following year. This is one of many moments in this history where careful, sustainable, generational knowledge arrived at real medicine long before the rest of the world caught up. Tobacco was used as a poultice ingredient by numerous indigenous nations in the Americas long before it became associated primarily with smoking. Crushed tobacco leaves, sometimes moistened and warmed, were applied topically by various indigenous communities to treat insect stings, minor wounds, and skin irritations. A practice rooted in careful traditional knowledge, entirely separate from the recreational and commercial uses that later dominated the plant's history following European contact. Tobacco does contain compounds with some genuine anti-inflammatory and antiseptic properties in topical use, though modern medicine does not recommend it given the same toxic alkaloids that make ingestion or heavy exposure genuinely harmful. Picture the plant growing tall and broad-leafed in a carefully tended garden plot, treated with ceremonial respect in many indigenous cultures. Its use is woven into spiritual practice as much as practical healing. It is worth remembering, alongside every fact in this history, that a single plant can carry entirely different meanings depending on who is holding it and why. Potato poultices became a widespread 19th and early 20th century folk remedy for swelling, sprains, and bruising. Grated raw potato, sometimes mixed with a little water into a rough paste, was wrapped in cloth and applied to swollen joints or bruises, a remedy that spread widely through European and American folk medicine, even though it lacks strong, dedicated scientific study compared to older, more established plant remedies. The moisture and gentle coolness of the raw potato likely provided real, if modest, comfort similar to a simple cold compress, and its easy availability in nearly every household kitchen surely helped it spread so widely and persist so long. Picture a farmhand icing a twisted ankle the only way available, grating a potato at the kitchen table with quick, practical motions, wrapping the pulp in a clean cloth before propping the foot up by the stove. Some remedies endure less because of extraordinary power and more because of extraordinary convenience, always within reach exactly when they were needed. Activated charcoal has been used to draw toxins and impurities from the skin since at least ancient Egyptian times, and its principle remains in use today. Charred wood or bone, ground into a fine black powder, has an enormous internal surface area at a microscopic level, allowing it to bind and trap many organic compounds, toxins, and gases through a chemical process called adsorption, distinct from simple absorption. Ancient Egyptian and later Hindu texts both describe charcoal used medicinally, and the practice persisted quietly through centuries of folk medicine before modern chemistry finally explained precisely why a handful of blackened powder could pull poisons so effectively out of a wound or the digestive system. Picture the last embers of a cooking fire, cooled and crushed by hand into fine black dust, folded into a paste and pressed against a wound black as the night sky it was gathered under. It is a strange, quiet poetry in this fact, that something left over from fire, the very thing that can cause a wound, became one of history's most enduring tools for healing one. Bentonite and Fuller's earth clays were used across ancient Rome, medieval Europe, and indigenous American cultures for their powerful drawing properties. Formed from the weathering of volcanic ash over thousands of years, these particular clays swell significantly when wet and carry a strong negative surface charge, allowing them to bind toxins, oils, and bacteria with unusual effectiveness, a property recognized independently by Roman fullers who used it to clean wool, by European folk healers who used it on skin infections, and by numerous indigenous American traditions that used similar clays for wound care and even, in some cases, as a supplement to counteract certain plant toxins in the diet. Picture a soft gray-green stone crumbling easily between two fingers, releasing a fine dust that thickens instantly the moment water touches it, transforming from solid rock to soft, spreadable paste within seconds. Few remedies in this entire history rely so completely on nothing but simple physics and chemistry, a testament to how much healing power can be found in the plainest, most overlooked corners of the earth. Seaweed was harvested and applied to swollen glands across coastal communities from ancient China to the shores of the British Isles, centuries before iodine was ever identified as an element. Many varieties of seaweed, particularly kelp, are naturally rich in iodine, a mineral essential for healthy thyroid function, and coastal communities that regularly applied seaweed poultices to swollen necks, a visible sign of goiter caused by iodine deficiency, were unknowingly correcting the very deficiency causing the swelling in the first place. Ancient Chinese medical texts describe seaweed remedies for exactly this condition, more than 2,000 years before iodine was isolated as a chemical element in 1811 by a French chemist working with seaweed ash. Picture a fisherman's wife gathering dark ribbons of kelp from tide pools at low tide, wringing out the salt water, wrapping the cool, slick fronds around a swollen throat, with no understanding of thyroids or minerals, only the accumulated confidence of every healer who came before her. It is one of the most striking examples in this entire history of a remedy working precisely as intended for reasons no one alive at the time could have possibly explained. Irish moss, a type of red algae harvested along the rocky Atlantic coastline, was boiled into a thick gel used for chest complaints and skin irritation. This particular seaweed contains carrageenan, a naturally occurring compound still used today as a thickening agent in modern food and pharmaceutical products, and coastal communities in Ireland and elsewhere along the North Atlantic discovered that boiling it down produced a soothing, gel-like substance suitable for both eating during times of scarcity and applying to irritated skin and chests. During the devastating Irish famine of the 19th century, this same humble seaweed became, quite literally, a matter of survival for many families along the coast, doubling as both food and folk remedy in the same desperate season. Picture waves crashing against dark rocks at low tide, a figure bent low, gathering handfuls of deep red-purple fronds into a woven basket, carrying home something that could feed a family and soothe a fever in the very same pot. Sometimes the line between medicine and survival is not a line at all, but the very same plant asked to do both. Dead Sea mud has been used for its therapeutic properties since antiquity, drawing visitors from across the ancient Mediterranean world. This unusually mineral-rich mud, formed along the shores of the lowest exposed point on Earth's surface, contains extraordinarily high concentrations of magnesium, potassium, and other minerals due to the sea's intense evaporation and lack of any natural outlet. And ancient visitors, including reportedly Cleopatra herself, according to enduring historical tradition, sought it out specifically for skin conditions and general well-being. Modern dermatological research has found genuine evidence that certain Dead Sea minerals can help with specific skin conditions, giving real substance to a reputation stretching back thousands of years across changing empires and civilizations. Picture a body coated in thick gray mud, drying slowly under a relentless desert sun beside water so dense with salt that a person floats on its surface without effort. A landscape almost otherworldly in its strangeness. It remains, even now, one of the very few ancient healing traditions still practiced in almost exactly the same location, by almost exactly the same shoreline, that it began beside so many centuries ago. Oatmeal was ground and soaked into a soothing paste for irritated and inflamed skin across countless generations of European folk medicine. Oats contain compounds called avenanthramides, along with beta-glucans, both of which modern dermatological research has confirmed to have genuine anti-inflammatory and skin-soothing properties, particularly for conditions involving itching and irritation such as eczema or chicken pox. Long before any of this chemistry was understood, colloidal oatmeal baths and poultices were a standard part of household remedy across rural Europe, made simply by grinding oats fine enough to suspend easily in water and form a gentle, milky paste. Picture a restless, itching child finally settling into stillness in a warm oat bath. The water turned soft and cloudy white, an old and unglamorous remedy doing exactly what it always quietly promised. It is a fitting reminder that not every piece of ancient medical wisdom needed to be exotic or rare to be genuinely effective. Sometimes the plainest grain in the pantry was already more than enough. Flaxseed poultices were a staple of Renaissance and early modern European medicine, prized for their remarkable moist heat retention. Ground flaxseed, mixed with hot water into a thick, sticky paste and wrapped in cloth, retains heat for a notably long time compared to many other poultice materials, making it especially useful for drawing out infections in boils and abscesses over an extended, steady application. Physicians across 16th and 17th century Europe frequently recommended flaxseed poultices specifically for this quality, and the seed's natural mucilage helped it hold together as a cohesive, spreadable paste rather than crumbling apart against the skin. Picture a physician's apprentice grinding seed after seed by hand with a mortar and pestle, working the resulting meal into hot water until it thickened into something almost like warm dough, ready to be pressed exactly where it was needed. It is a small, practical detail, but a telling one, that among all the properties ancient and early modern healers valued in a remedy, simply holding its heat well enough for long enough mattered just as much as any specific ingredient inside it. Chamomile has been used in poultices and washes for irritated skin and eyes since at least ancient Egyptian times, and its reputation has barely dimmed in 4,000 years. The small, daisy-like chamomile flower contains compounds including bisabolol and chimazulene, both studied in modern research for genuine anti-inflammatory and mildly antimicrobial effects, offering real scientific footing for a reputation that stretches back through ancient Egyptian, Greek, and Roman medicine, and continues essentially unbroken into the present day. Egyptians associated the flower with the sun god Ra due to its bright, radiating petals, while later European folk tradition simply called it the plant's physician, believing that a struggling garden could be revived by planting chamomile nearby. Picture a field of small white and gold flowers swaying gently in evening light, gathered by hand into a woven basket, destined to be steeped into a warm compress for a tired, inflamed eye. Few remedies in this history have traveled so far, through so many civilizations, with so little change to either the plant itself or the simple faith placed in it. Calendula, the bright orange marigold flower, became one of the most trusted wound-healing poultices across medieval and Renaissance Europe. Distinct from ordinary garden marigolds, calendula was cultivated specifically for its medicinal properties. Its petals crushed or infused into oils and applied to cuts, burns, and inflamed skin, valued for genuine wound-healing compounds that modern research has since confirmed, including flavonoids with real anti-inflammatory activity. Its consistent, reliable, bright orange bloom throughout most of the growing season, even in relatively poor soil, made it a practical staple in monastery and household gardens alike, always available exactly when an injury demanded it. Picture rows of vivid orange blossoms lining a cottage garden path, cut in the cool of early morning while their healing compounds were thought to be at their strongest, carried inside in a woven basket still damp with dew. It is worth noticing how often, across this entire history, the plants trusted most by ordinary people were also simply the ones reliable enough to always be there. Arnica, a mountain flower found across the higher elevations of Europe and North America, was used in poultices for bruises and muscle pain by communities who had to climb to reach it. Alpine communities in the mountains of Central Europe developed a particularly strong folk reputation for arnica, applying crushed or infused preparations of the flower to sprains, bruises, and sore muscles, a use that persists today in modern topical gels and creams sold in pharmacies. The plant contains compounds including helinalan, which has demonstrated genuine anti-inflammatory properties in modern research, though it is used only externally, since the same compound can be genuinely toxic if taken internally in any meaningful quantity. Picture a shepherd high on a windswept alpine slope, bending to gather bright yellow-orange blossoms scattered across rocky, thin-soiled ground, carrying them back down the mountain for the inevitable bruises and aches of a life spent climbing. It seems fitting that a remedy for the aches of hard physical labor grew only in places that themselves demanded hard physical labor simply to reach. Witch hazel was distilled by indigenous peoples of eastern North America long before European settlers adopted and eventually commercialized it. The Iroquois and other eastern woodland nations boiled the bark and leaves of the witch hazel shrub to create an astringent liquid, applied to bruises, swelling, and skin irritation. A preparation genuinely rich in tannins with measurable anti-inflammatory and mildly antiseptic properties. European settlers learned the practice directly from indigenous communities, and by the 19th century, witch hazel had become one of the most commercially successful herbal remedies in American history, still found in pharmacies today in essentially the same basic form. Picture bark stripped carefully from a low, twisting shrub known for blooming strangely in the depths of winter, when almost nothing else dares to flower, boiled slowly over a fire into a clear, sharp-scented liquid. It is one of the clearest, most direct threads in this entire history, connecting an indigenous remedy, largely unaltered, straight through to a bottle still sitting in many modern medicine cabinets today. St. John's wort was pressed into poultices for wounds and nerve pain across ancient and medieval Europe, its name rooted in ancient midsummer tradition. This bright yellow-flowered plant, gathered traditionally around the feast of St. John the Baptist in late June, was infused in oil and applied to cuts, burns, and areas of nerve pain. And modern research has identified compounds including hypericin with genuine wound healing and mild antimicrobial properties. Ancient Greek physicians, including Dioscorides, described its uses centuries before it became closely associated with the Christian saint whose name it now carries, suggesting its reputation as a healing plant predates the tradition that eventually renamed it. Picture fields of small yellow blossoms gathered at the height of midsummer light, pressed and steeped slowly in oil until the liquid itself turned a deep, faintly red color, as though the plant's healing power had visibly stained the very oil meant to carry it. It is a small, telling detail that one of Europe's most enduring healing plants carries, in its own name, an entire forgotten layer of the calendar and the customs once built around it. Elderberry and elderflower preparations were used across European folk medicine, both as poultices for skin conditions and as remedies for respiratory illness. The elder tree held such significance in European folk tradition that in some regions it was considered impolite, even unlucky, to cut one down without first asking its permission. Yet its flowers and berries were nonetheless gathered constantly for medicinal use, crushed into poultices for skin irritation or brewed into syrups for coughs and fevers. Modern research has identified genuine antiviral and anti-inflammatory compounds in elderberry, offering real scientific support for a plant that European households trusted implicitly for centuries without any such evidence. Picture broad, flat clusters of tiny white flowers nodding in a summer hedgerow, gathered carefully by hand into a basket, destined equally for a healing poultice and a family's dinner table. It is worth noting how frequently, across this whole history, the plants treated with the deepest folk reverence turn out, on closer mode. RN inspection, to have deserved that reverence after all. Papaya latex, the milky sap released from the unripe fruit and stem, was used across Central America and the Caribbean to help clean and debride wounds. This sap contains an enzyme called papain, which breaks down proteins, and traditional healers across regions where papaya grows discovered that applying it to wounds could help gently dissolve dead or damaged tissue, easing the body's own natural healing process. A use that modern medicine has since studied formally, including papain-based enzymatic debridement treatments developed in the 20th century. Picture a healer scoring the green, unripe skin of a papaya growing beside a village home, catching the thick white sap that beads instantly from the cut, applying it with careful precision rather than simply smearing the whole surface. It is a striking thing that a fruit so associated today with breakfast tables and tropical sweetness carried, in its unripe and unassuming form, a genuinely sophisticated piece of ancient wound science. Banana and taro leaves were used across the Pacific Islands and Southeast Asia, both to wrap poultices and, softened over a flame, to serve as a healing dressing in their own right. Large, broad, and naturally somewhat waxy, these leaves were warmed gently over embers until pliable, then wrapped directly around burns and wounds, providing a clean, moisture-retaining barrier in tropical climates where clean cloth was not always readily available. And traditional Pacific healers across many island nations developed remarkably similar techniques entirely independently of one another. Picture a broad green leaf held just above glowing coals, softening slightly in the heat until it can be folded without cracking, wrapped snugly around a burn with practiced, unhurried hands. There is something quietly elegant about a remedy that required no grinding, no mixing, no separate ingredients at all, just a leaf, a flame, and the patient skill of knowing exactly how long to hold it there. Coconut oil was used across Pacific Island and South Asian traditions as both a carrier for poultice ingredients and a wound treatment in its own right. Extracted through labor-intensive traditional pressing methods from the dried flesh of the coconut, this oil contains lauric acid and other compounds with documented antimicrobial properties, and Pacific Island healers frequently combined it with crushed local herbs to create poultices that would remain workable and moist far longer than a plain water-based paste in hot, humid climates. Its abundance across island communities, where the coconut palm was sometimes called the tree of 1,000 uses, meant it was rarely scarce. A rare example of a medicinal ingredient that never demanded difficult trade or scarcity-driven value, the way many other ancient remedies did. Picture a warm, humid clearing beneath towering palms, a healer working crushed leaves into a small bowl of oil pressed by hand that same morning. The whole process from tree to treatment completed within a single unhurried day. Some of the most reliable medicine in this history came from places where nature simply provided generously, and people learned gratefully exactly how to use what they were given. Shea butter has been used across West Africa for centuries as a base for medicinal poultices treating burns, wounds, and dry, irritated skin. Extracted through a laborious traditional process from the nuts of the shea tree, a process historically carried out almost entirely by women's cooperatives passing the technique down through generations. Shea butter is rich in fatty acids and vitamins that provide genuine moisturizing and mild anti-inflammatory benefits, properties that have made it valuable in modern skincare formulations worldwide as well. Traditional healers across the West African Shea Belt combined it with local herbs to create poultices for burns and skin infections, trusting a substance whose production itself represented weeks of careful, communal labor. Picture rows of women working together around open fires, roasting and grinding shea nuts by hand in a process passed mother to daughter for longer than anyone can precisely date, transforming a simple nut into something soft enough to heal a burn. It is worth remembering that behind so many ancient remedies stood not a single healer working alone, but entire communities of labor and knowledge, most of it never individually credited or named. Eucalyptus was used by Aboriginal Australian communities in poultices and inhalants for thousands of years before it became a familiar scent in modern cold remedies worldwide. Aboriginal peoples across the Australian continent developed detailed knowledge of the many eucalyptus species native to the land, crushing and warming the leaves into poultices for wounds, fevers, and headaches, and inhaling the vapor from crushed leaves for congestion, practices that reflect tens of thousands of years of accumulated botanical knowledge about a continent's unique flora. Modern research has confirmed genuine antiseptic and decongestant properties in the essential oils eucalyptus leaves contain. And by the 19th century, European settlers had adopted the practice so thoroughly that eucalyptus oil became a major commercial export from Australia. Picture sharp, silver-green leaves crushed between two hands, releasing a clean, penetrating scent into open air beneath a wide Australian sky, a remedy already ancient by the time it was ever written down in any language at all. It is a fitting reminder that Aboriginal Australian knowledge of the land's plants, developed across the longest continuous cultural history on Earth, quietly shaped remedies now found in medicine cabinets on every continent. Tea tree oil was used by the Bundjalung and other Aboriginal nations of Eastern Australia long before it became a global commercial product in the 20th century. Leaves from the narrow-leaved tea tree were crushed and inhaled for headaches and colds, or soaked and applied directly to wounds and skin infections, a practice recorded among Bundjalung communities of what is now northern New South Wales, and passed down across many generations before any formal scientific study existed. Modern laboratory research has confirmed that tea tree oil contains terpenophorol and other compounds with genuine antiseptic and antifungal properties, validating a tradition that reached its conclusions purely through sustained, careful observation across an enormous span of time. Picture a shallow coastal swamp where these narrow trees grow thick and fragrant, their leaves gathered and crushed to release an oil so distinctive that its scent alone became, centuries later, instantly recognizable on pharmacy shelves around the world. It is a clear, direct thread from one of the oldest continuous cultures on the planet straight into a bottle sold today in almost any corner of the globe. Juniper berries and branches were used in poultices and smoke treatments across both ancient European and indigenous North American traditions, discovered independently by cultures separated by an entire ocean. European folk healers crushed juniper berries into pastes applied to joint pain and skin infections, while numerous indigenous nations across North America used juniper branches in similar poultice preparations, as well as in purifying smoke used during healing ceremonies. A striking case of two entirely separate traditions arriving at very similar conclusions about the same tree. Juniper contains genuine antimicrobial compounds, and its resinous, sharp scent, familiar today mostly from gin production, was for thousands of years associated first and foremost with healing and purification rather than drink. Picture a low, hardy shrub clinging to rocky, difficult ground on two different continents at once, its blue-gray berries gathered by entirely unconnected hands who each, in their own way, decided to trust it. It is one more quiet instance of this recurring pattern throughout the whole history. Separate peoples, separate continents, and yet remarkably similar conclusions, drawn from careful attention to the very same plant. Sage was used across both European and indigenous North American traditions in poultices for wounds and infections, though its most famous modern association is with ceremonial smoke rather than direct application. Beyond the well-known practice of burning sage for spiritual cleansing in many indigenous North American traditions, crushed sage leaves were also made into poultices and washes for cuts, sore throats, and skin infections across cultures as distant from one another as ancient Rome and the American Southwest. And modern research has identified genuine antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory compounds within the plant. Its Latin genus name, Salvia, derives directly from the word for healing, reflecting just how central the plant's medicinal reputation was to the ancient world that first named it. Picture silvery, soft leaves gathered into a bundle, some destined to be crushed into a wound poultice, others tied and dried for an entirely different, more ceremonial purpose. The same plant serving two related but distinct kinds of healing. It is worth remembering that a single plant, across different hands and different intentions, can carry forward more than one kind of medicine at once. Manuka honey, gathered from bees that feed on the flowers of a shrub native to New Zealand, represents one of the clearest living bridges between ancient poultice tradition and modern clinical medicine. The Maori people of New Zealand used the Manuka plant medicinally for generations before European contact, and modern research eventually discovered that honey produced from its flowers contains unusually high concentrations of methylglyoxal, giving it antibacterial strength well beyond that of ordinary honey. Strong enough tea. Hat Manuka honey dressings are now approved for genuine clinical wound care in hospitals across several countries. This makes it a rare and remarkable case in this entire history. An ancient poultice ingredient not simply rediscovered or reinterpreted by modern science, but formally adopted, tested, and approved for use in contemporary medical settings exactly as it always was. Picture a hospital dressing cart today holding, alongside sterile gauze and modern antiseptics, a small sealed tube of the same honey ancient healers half a world away were already trusting for entirely intuitive reasons. It is a fitting note to sit with quietly, that the oldest medicine and the newest medicine sometimes turn out, after all this time, to be exactly the same jar. Clove was used in Ayurvedic, Chinese, and later European medicine to numb pain, especially the sharp pain of a toothache, long before dentistry existed as a formal practice. The clove, actually the dried flower bud of a tropical evergreen tree native to Indonesia, contains a compound called eugenol, a natural anesthetic and antiseptic still used in modern dental preparations today. And ancient Chinese court records describe clove being chewed to freshen breath and dull pain more than 2,000 years ago, a practice that spread along trade routes into India and eventually the Mediterranean world. A crushed clove paste, or simply a whole clove pressed against an aching tooth, offered real, immediate relief long before any dentist existed to address the deeper cause. Picture a small, dark, star-shaped bud, dried and shriveled, carried across thousands of miles of ocean and desert trade routes, valued so highly it once helped justify entire colonial expeditions. It is worth pausing on the strange scale of it, that something as small and simple as a single dried flower bud shaped so much of the world's ancient trade, all beginning with the very ordinary human wish for a little relief from pain. Rosewater and rose petal poultices were treasured across ancient Persia and the wider Islamic world for cooling fevers and soothing inflamed eyes and skin. Persian physicians developed sophisticated distillation techniques to extract rosewater as early as the 9th century, refining a process that would later spread across the Islamic world and into Europe. And rose petals themselves, crushed fresh or infused in oil, were pressed onto fevered foreheads and inflamed eyelids for their genuinely mild anti-inflammatory and cooling properties. The scent alone was believed by many ancient physicians to carry restorative power, a belief modern research has partially supported by identifying real, if modest, calming effects associated with certain floral compounds on mood and perceived stress. Picture a Persian garden in full bloom, rows of deep red roses tended with the same careful precision as any medicinal herb, their petals gathered at dawn while still cool and heavy with dew, distilled that same day into water clear and fragrant enough to soothe a fevered child's brow. It is a gentle note to rest on for a while, that even in medicine built from careful chemistry and repeated trial, there was always room left for simple, deliberate beauty. Sphagnum moss dressings were gathered on an almost unimaginable scale during the First World War, when ancient folk knowledge suddenly became a matter of military necessity. As the demand for wound dressings vastly outpaced the available supply of cotton gauze, military medical officers rediscovered the old folk practice of using sphagnum moss, and volunteers across Britain, Canada, and other allied nations were organized into enormous harvesting efforts, gathering moss from peat bogs by the ton, drying it, and shipping it directly to field hospitals. The moss proved to hold liquid far more effectively than cotton, roughly 20 times its own weight, while its natural mild acidity helped inhibit bacterial growth in ways cotton simply could not match, meaning wounded soldiers dressed with moss sometimes healed with fewer complications than those dressed with more modern materials. Picture rows of volunteers, many of them elderly or too young to fight, kneeling for hours across cold, waterlogged bogs, filling sack after sack with an unglamorous plant that would end up saving limbs and lives an ocean away. It is a striking, almost startling thing that in the middle of the most industrialized war the world had yet seen, medicine reached backward gratefully into a remedy already thousands of years old. Pine tar was used across Scandinavian and Northern European folk medicine for centuries, applied to wounds and used to treat skin conditions with a distinctive dark, resinous poultice. Produced by slowly burning pine wood in a low-oxygen kiln over the course of days, pine tar carries genuine antiseptic and mildly antifungal properties, and Nordic households historically kept a supply on hand, not only for waterproofing boats and ropes but for treating cuts, burns, and stubborn skin conditions in both people and livestock. Its production was often a communal seasonal event in rural Scandinavian and Baltic villages, with entire families working together to tend the slow-burning tar kilns through the night. Picture thick, black tar bubbling slowly from a mound of smoldering pine logs buried under turf, collected drop by careful drop into wooden barrels that would serve the household through an entire long winter. It is a fitting detail that a substance born from careful, patient fire became, in turn, one of the most trusted remedies for healing the wounds that fire and hard rural life inevitably caused. Birch bark was used across Siberian, Scandinavian, and North American indigenous traditions to treat wounds and skin infections, a use discovered independently on opposite sides of the globe. The thin, papery outer bark of the birch tree contains betulin and betulinic acid, compounds now studied by modern researchers for genuine antimicrobial and wound healing properties, and its natural water resistance made it useful as an outer wrapping to hold other poultice ingredients firmly in place against skin. Indigenous Siberian communities, Scandinavian villagers, and numerous indigenous nations across North America each arrived at very similar birch bark remedies, separated not only by vast distance, but by any conceivable historical contact between them. Picture pale, curling bark peeled carefully in long strips from a tree that thrives even in punishing northern cold, wrapped snugly around an injured hand in 3 entirely different corners of the world, none of them aware the other 2 existed. Few facts in this whole history illustrate quite so clearly how consistently the human search for healing has arrived, again and again, at the very same quiet conclusions. Camphor, extracted from the wood of an evergreen tree native to East Asia, was used in chest poultices and rubs across Chinese, Indian, and eventually global medicine for its distinctive cooling, penetrating sensation. Ancient Chinese and Ayurvedic medical traditions both independently discovered that camphor, when mixed into oil or wax and applied to the chest, produced a cooling, slightly numbing sensation that seemed to ease congestion and breathing difficulty, a use that persisted largely unchanged for well over 1,000 years, and eventually became the basis for modern chest rub products still sold around the world today. The compound works partly by stimulating cold-sensing nerve receptors in the skin, creating a genuine physical sensation of relief, even though its direct effect on the lungs themselves is more limited than ancient physicians assumed. Picture a small block of pale, crystalline camphor shaved carefully into warm oil, the sharp, clean scent filling a sick room instantly, applied in slow circular motions to a congested chest by a caregiver who had likely received the very same treatment as a child. It is a remedy so enduring that its modern form, sold today in nearly identical little tins and jars, would likely be instantly recognizable to a physician working 2,000 years ago. Lavender was infused into oils and pressed into poultices across Roman and later medieval European medicine, valued for both its calming scent and its genuine antiseptic properties. Roman soldiers reportedly carried lavender to help clean and dress wounds while on campaign, and the plant's name itself likely derives from the Latin word for washing, reflecting just how deeply its use in cleansing and healing was woven into its earliest identity. Modern research has confirmed real antimicrobial and mild analgesic properties in lavender essential oil, offering scientific footing for a plant whose calming reputation might otherwise seem based purely on pleasant scent alone. Picture long rows of purple blossoms swaying under a hot Mediterranean sun, harvested and pressed into a soothing oil later carried in a soldier's field kit, alongside more purely functional supplies. One small comfort allowed among the necessities of war. It is worth remembering that ancient medicine rarely separated physical healing from simple comfort, treating both as part of the very same careful, attentive craft. Rosemary featured prominently in a legendary plague-era remedy known as Four Thieves Vinegar, said to have protected grave robbers from infection during outbreaks of plague in medieval and early modern Europe. According to persistent legend, a group of thieves who robbed the bodies of plague victims without becoming infected themselves later revealed, in exchange for leniency, a secret recipe of vinegar infused with rosemary, sage, and other aromatic herbs that they credited with their survival. A story that may be more folklore than documented fact, but that reflects genuine underlying chemistry, since rosemary and its companion herbs do contain real antimicrobial compounds. Vinegar-soaked cloths infused with these herbs were subsequently used across Europe as a general protective measure against infection, long before germ theory existed to explain precisely why it might help. Picture a small glass bottle of dark, herb-steeped vinegar carried discreetly in a coat pocket through plague-stricken streets, held to the nose at every corner, trusted not with certainty, but with the kind of desperate hope that outbreaks of disease have always demanded from ordinary people. Whether the thieves of the legend were ever real, the herbs themselves were genuinely, quietly doing something. Fig sap, the milky latex that oozes from a broken fig stem or unripe fruit, was used across the ancient Mediterranean to treat warts and rough, thickened skin. This sap contains proteolytic enzymes similar in function to those found in papaya latex, capable of gently breaking down the abnormal tissue of a wart when applied repeatedly over several days. A use documented by ancient Greek and Roman writers, including Pliny the Elder, who described the practice in his sprawling natural history. Farmers and orchard workers, who would have encountered fig sap constantly during pruning and harvest, likely noticed its effect on their own skin quite by accident long before any physician formally recorded the remedy. Picture a fig branch snapped at dusk, a bead of white, faintly sticky sap welling up instantly at the break, dabbed directly onto a small, stubborn growth on a farmer's calloused hand. It is one more example, among so many in this history, of medicine discovered not in a laboratory or a temple, but simply in the ordinary work of tending a tree. Grape leaves were used across the ancient Mediterranean world both to wrap other poultice ingredients and on their own, applied to bruises and swelling. Rich in tannins and flavonoid compounds with genuine mild anti-inflammatory properties, grape leaves were valued by Greek and Roman households, not only for the familiar culinary role they still hold today, but as a practical, always available wrapping for other herbal poultices. Their broad, sturdy shape, well suited to holding a warm paste firmly in place against the skin. Ancient vineyards, tended across the Mediterranean for thousands of years, meant that grape leaves were rarely scarce, always within easy reach of exactly the households that needed them most. Picture a vineyard worker pausing at midday to wrap a bruised knee in cool, broad leaves plucked straight from the very vines they had been tending since morning. Medicine and labor drawn from the very same plant in the very same breath. It is a small, unremarkable moment, and yet it captures something essential about how so much ancient medicine actually happened, quietly, practically, exactly where the work already was. Turnip and beet poultices were common across northern and eastern European folk medicine, prized for their cooling effect on swollen and inflamed skin. Grated raw turnip or beet, sometimes mixed with a little flour to help it hold together, was wrapped in cloth and applied to swelling, insect stings, and mild burns, a remedy that persisted particularly strongly in regions of Europe, where these hardy root vegetables were reliably available through even the harshest winters when more delicate herbs simply could not be grown. Beetroot in particular contains compounds now studied for genuine anti-inflammatory activity, offering some real support for a practice that likely also succeeded simply through the basic cooling comfort of any cold, moist vegetable pressed against irritated skin. Picture root cellars packed with turnips and beets against the coming cold, a portion set aside not for the dinner table, but for whatever small injury the long winter might bring. It is a quiet reminder that in the harshest, most resource-limited seasons, healing knowledge adapted itself to exactly what remained reliably at hand. Cattail down, the soft, cottony fluff released from the plant's distinctive brown seed heads, was used by numerous indigenous nations across North America to pack and cushion wounds. This remarkably soft, absorbent material was gathered in late summer and used both to help stem bleeding through gentle pressure and to cushion injuries during travel or hard physical work. A practical solution readily available across the wetlands and marshes, where cattails grow abundantly throughout most of the continent. Beyond its wound care use, cattail down was also prized for insulating clothing and bedding, meaning a single plant served several overlapping practical purposes for the communities who relied on it. Picture a brown, sausage-shaped seed head bursting apart at a touch into an almost impossibly soft cloud of fine fiber, gathered by hand into a pouch destined for whichever need arose first: a wound, a cold night, or both. It is worth noticing, once again, how often the most effective ancient remedies were also simply the most abundant, requiring nothing rare or difficult, only patient familiarity with what already grew close to home. Coca leaves were chewed and applied in poultices across the high Andes for centuries, used specifically to address the particular demands of extreme altitude. Indigenous communities across the Andean highlands of South America chewed coca leaves to ease the effects of high altitude, including fatigue and pain, and also applied crushed leaves directly to wounds and sore joints, taking advantage of the leaf's genuine mild anesthetic and stimulant properties, distinct in both concentration and cultural context from the refined substance later derived from the same plant. Spanish colonizers initially attempted to suppress the practice, viewing it through a lens of moral judgment rather than practical medicine, before later recognizing and exploiting the very stamina-enhancing effects they had first condemned. Picture a highland farmer working terraced fields at an altitude where the air itself grows thin, a small wad of leaves tucked into the cheek, a practice inherited across countless generations who understood their own unique landscape's particular demands better than any outsider ever could. It is worth remembering that even the same plant can carry radically different meanings depending on the altitude, the culture, and the century in which it is held. Kawakawa leaf, sacred to the Maori people of New Zealand, was used in poultices for wounds, bruises, and general pain relief for many centuries before European contact. This heart-shaped leaf, easily identified by the small holes reliably chewed into it by a native caterpillar, a detail Maori healers traditionally used to judge a leaf's potency, was warmed and applied directly to injuries, and modern research has since confirmed the presence of genuine anti-inflammatory and analgesic compounds within the plant. Kawakawa held, and continues to hold, deep cultural and spiritual significance in Maori tradition well beyond its purely medicinal use, integrated fully into a broader worldview connecting physical healing to spiritual and ancestral well-being. Picture a healer selecting one particular leaf from many, checking carefully for the telltale caterpillar holes before warming it gently over a flame and pressing it against an aching joint. It is a fitting reminder that in many of the world's oldest healing traditions, medicine was never separated from meaning, and choosing the right leaf was never simply a matter of chemistry alone. Noni fruit, found across many Pacific islands, was fermented and applied in poultices for wounds and skin infections, despite its notoriously strong odor. Traditional Pacific Island healers, across a vast expanse of ocean from Hawaii to Tahiti to Southeast Asia, independently discovered that the pungent, strong-smelling noni fruit, often described as having an odor unlike almost anything else in the plant world, produced genuine antimicrobial and anti-inflammatory effects when crushed and applied to skin, a use that modern research has partially validated despite the fruit's continued reputation for its overwhelming smell. Its widespread use across such enormous oceanic distances, connecting island communities separated by thousands of miles of open water, offers a striking picture of how far both the plant itself and the accumulated knowledge of its use managed to travel by canoe alongside the very people who carried and settled it. Picture a fruit left just slightly too long in the tropical heat, its odor sharp and unmistakable, handled anyway with total confidence by healers who had long since learned to trust the remedy over the smell. Sometimes the most effective medicine in this entire history was never the most pleasant, only the most reliably, patiently proven. Ichthymol, a dark, distinctive ointment derived from sulfur-rich shale oil, represents one of the last major additions to the ancient poultice tradition before modern pharmaceuticals largely took its place. Developed in the late 19th century from bituminous shale deposits found in parts of Europe, ichthymol carries a genuinely unusual, tar-like smell and a deep black color, and it was rapidly adopted into mainstream medicine for drawing out boils, splinters, and localized infections, functioning through much the same drawing moist heat principle that bread, flaxseed, and clay poultices had relied on for thousands of years before it. Though considered a relatively modern remedy by the standards of this whole long history, its underlying logic reaches directly back to the very oldest poultice traditions, a substance chosen and refined by essentially the same instinct that guided healers reaching for warm clay or crushed herbs millennia earlier. Picture a small tin of thick, near-black ointment sitting in a 19th century apothecary alongside far older remedies, a new arrival built in spirit from an ancient and unbroken idea. It is a fitting closing thread in this long history, a reminder that even as ingredients and centuries changed entirely, the essential, patient logic of the poultice itself never really did. Peppermint was crushed into cooling poultices across ancient Greek, Roman, and later European medicine. Valued for a sensation, the plant produces through a genuinely fascinating piece of biology. Peppermint leaves contain menthol, a compound that directly activates the same cold-sensing nerve receptors in skin that normally respond to actual cold temperature, meaning the cooling sensation people feel from a peppermint poultice is not an illusion of scent, but a real, measurable nerve response tricked into firing by chemistry alone. Ancient Greek and Roman physicians applied crushed peppermint to headaches and inflamed skin, and the plant's very name in Greek mythology traces back to a nymph transformed into the fragrant herb, reflecting how deeply its distinctive sensation impressed the ancient world that first used it. Picture cool, sharp-scented leaves crushed between two hands on a hot afternoon, pressed against a throbbing headache, the skin beneath genuinely convinced, for a little while, that something cold has touched it. It is a striking thought that one of the oldest and simplest remedies in this entire history works by gently, harmlessly fooling the body's own nervous system into a small, welcome relief. Cayenne pepper and other capsaicin-rich chilies were used as counter-irritant poultices across the American South and Central America, working through the very same nerve pathway as peppermint, but in the opposite direction. Where menthol tricks cold receptors into firing capsaicin, the compound responsible for a chili pepper's heat activates the nerve receptors that sense actual heat and pain. And folk healers across the Americas discovered that a carefully diluted cayenne poultice applied to sore, aching muscles could ease deeper pain by essentially overwhelming and distracting the local nerve signals, a principle still used today in modern capsaicin-based pain creams. Enslaved African American communities in the American South, drawing on both African herbal traditions and knowledge gained from indigenous and local plant use, developed particularly detailed cayenne-based remedies that were passed down through generations largely outside of any formal written medical record. Picture a poultice mixed with careful, practiced caution, since too much cayenne could burn rather than soothe, applied to an aching lower back after a long day of brutal physical labor. It is worth remembering that some of history's most sophisticated practical medicine survived entirely through oral tradition, carried forward by people the official record too often chose not to name. Nile silt itself, the fine dark mud left behind by the river's annual floods, was occasionally used directly in Egyptian poultices for its cooling, mineral-rich texture. Ancient Egyptian civilization depended entirely on the Nile's yearly flooding to renew the fertile soil that fed the empire. And this same rich, dark silt, distinct from the paler desert clay used elsewhere, was sometimes applied directly to inflamed or swollen skin, valued for a cooling, mineral-dense texture, not unlike other therapeutic muds used across the ancient world. The flooding itself was so central to Egyptian life that it shaped their entire calendar and much of their religious worldview, meaning the very substance capable of soothing a wound was also, quite literally, understood as a gift from the river god Hapi. Picture thick, dark mud drying slowly on sun-warmed skin beside the slow-moving river that had, only weeks earlier, provided it. The same water responsible for an entire civilization's food also offering a small, ordinary measure of comfort. It is a fitting detail that in a civilization built entirely around a single great river, even its medicine could not help but rise, quite literally, from the same source as everything else. Li Shizhen, a 16th century Chinese physician, spent nearly 3 decades compiling the most comprehensive materia medica the world had yet seen, expanding vastly on poultice knowledge collected across 2,000 years of Chinese medicine. His work, known as the Benkao Gangmu, cataloged more than 1,800 substances and nearly 11,000 individual remedies, including detailed poultice preparations, correcting numerous errors that had accumulated across earlier Chinese medical texts and organizing plant, animal, and mineral remedies with a rigor that impressed scholars far beyond China's borders for centuries afterward. Li Shizhen reportedly traveled extensively to observe plants in their natural growing conditions and consulted directly with local farmers, fishermen, and hunters, treating their practical, lived knowledge as seriously as any formal academic source, an unusually democratic approach to scholarship for his era. Picture an aging scholar, decades into a single sprawling project, comp. Aring notes gathered from a mountain herbalist against those of a royal physician, weighing both with exactly the same careful scrutiny. It is a striking example of how the very best ancient medical knowledge often came not from isolated genius, but from one patient person willing to listen carefully to absolutely everyone. Willow bark held an entirely separate and independent history among indigenous nations of North America, who used it for pain relief without any contact with the ancient Egyptian or Greek traditions that discovered the very same remedy. Numerous indigenous nations across North America, including peoples of the Pacific Northwest and the Great Plains, independently identified willow bark's pain-relieving properties, chewing it or preparing it as a poultice for headaches, fevers, and joint pain, arriving at essentially the same practical conclusion as ancient civilizations an ocean and thousands of years away. This is one of the clearest examples in this entire history of convergent discovery. Two completely separate human populations, with no shared knowledge whatsoever, independently identifying the same tree, the same bark, and very nearly the same preparation for the very same relief. Picture a healer along a Pacific Northwest riverbank, stripping bark from a willow bent low over the water, working entirely independently of any physician in ancient Alexandria or Athens, yet arriving, through nothing but patient observation, at the same fundamental truth. It is one of the most quietly persuasive facts in this whole history that when two peoples with no possible contact discover the same remedy, the natural world itself is very likely the true author of the medicine. Seawater itself was used as a wound wash across ancient Greek, Roman, and later Mediterranean coastal communities, its natural salinity offering a genuine, if harsh, antiseptic effect. Salt draws water out of bacterial cells through basic osmotic pressure, weakening or killing many microorganisms on contact, and ancient physicians along the Mediterranean coast, lacking any understanding of this cellular mechanism, nonetheless noticed that wounds washed in seawater often healed more cleanly than those left untreated. A practical observation echoed later by sailors across many seafaring cultures who developed a rough folk confidence in salt water's cleansing power. The sting of the treatment was considerable, and ancient sources occasionally note patients' understandable reluctance. Yet the practice persisted precisely because, uncomfortable as it was, it seemed to genuinely work. Picture a fisherman rinsing a deep cut directly in the cold, stinging surf, wincing but continuing anyway, trusting an unpleasant but consistent old habit passed down from every fisherman before him. Sometimes the oldest medicine in this history was not gentle at all, only reliable, and reliability, especially before anyone understood why, was almost always enough to keep a remedy alive. Cinnamon bark was traded across enormous distances in the ancient world partly for its genuine antimicrobial properties, used in poultices and wound dressings from Egypt to China. Ancient Egyptian embalmers used cinnamon in the preservation of the dead, while separately, ancient Chinese medical texts describe cinnamon bark ground into pastes for wounds and digestive complaints, and modern research has since confirmed that cinnamon contains genuine antibacterial and antifungal compounds, offering real scientific substance to a spice so valuable in the ancient world that its true geographic origin was deliberately kept secret by traders for centuries. Arab spice merchants reportedly invented elaborate, entirely fictional stories about enormous birds guarding cinnamon groves in impossibly dangerous locations, specifically to discourage rival traders from discovering the spice's real source in South and Southeast Asia. Picture a merchant's private ledger. Cinnamon bark valued nearly as highly as gold by weight, wrapped and sealed for a journey of thousands of miles by both camel and ship before it would ever reach a healer's careful hands. It is worth remembering that behind so many ancient remedies lay not just careful science, but centuries of guarded secrecy, invention, and the very human instinct to protect a good and valuable thing. Stinging nettle was used across ancient and medieval European medicine in a poultice practice that seems, at first glance, to work backward, deliberately using pain to relieve pain. The practice, sometimes called urtication, involved striking or pressing the stinging leaves of the nettle plant directly against an area of chronic joint pain. And while it sounds needlessly harsh, the nettle's own natural stinging compounds trigger a genuine localized inflammatory and immune response that some modern researchers believe may help temporarily override or distract from deeper, chronic pain signals, a crude ancestor of ideas still explored in modern pain science today. Ancient Roman soldiers reportedly used nettle stings to warm cold limbs on long marches, and the practice persisted quietly in rural European folk medicine for arthritis and rheumatism well into relatively recent history. Picture an old farmer with aching, arthritic knuckles, deliberately pressing a handful of nettles against his own skin, trusting a strange, uncomfortable old habit that his own father had trusted before him. It is one of the more counterintuitive threads in this entire history, a reminder that ancient medicine sometimes reached its relief not by avoiding discomfort, but by walking directly through a smaller one. Pine resin, gathered directly from the trunk of wounded or cut pine trees, was pressed onto human wounds across ancient Mediterranean, Scandinavian, and North American indigenous traditions alike. Sticky and slow to dry, pine resin forms a natural waterproof seal when applied to a cut, mechanically protecting the wound from dirt and moisture, while also carrying genuine mild antiseptic compounds. And its use appears independently across cultures as distant from one another as ancient Greece and the forests of the American Northeast, each recognizing the same basic usefulness in the same abundant, resinous tree. Indigenous nations of North America often warmed the resin slightly before application, making it more pliable and easier to spread evenly across a wound surface. Picture golden resin bleeding slowly from a fresh cut in a pine trunk, sticky and fragrant, gathered on a stick and warmed gently over a small fire before being pressed, with careful fingers, directly onto a hunter's injured palm. It is fitting, in a way, that a tree's own natural response to injury, sealing its own wounds with sap, became one of humanity's most consistently rediscovered lessons in how to heal ourselves. Edgar Cayce, an American folk healer of the early 20th century, helped popularize castor oil packs so widely that the practice remains a recognizable part of alternative wellness culture even today. Though Cayce himself was a controversial and unconventional figure, whose broader claims went well beyond mainstream medicine, his specific promotion of warm castor oil packs applied to the abdomen drew directly on a much older tradition already documented in ancient Egyptian and Ayurvedic sources, effectively reintroducing a genuinely old remedy to a modern American audience through his large following in the early to mid-1900s. The renewed popularity meant that a preparation nearly identical to one used along the Nile thousands of years earlier found its way into ordinary American households once again, carried forward not through unbroken tradition, but through a strange, indirect 20th century revival. Picture a warm, oil-soaked flannel cloth laid across a stomach in a quiet 1930s farmhouse bedroom. The same basic remedy, in nearly the same basic form, that a healer beside the Nile might have prepared millennia before. It is a fitting reminder that old medicine does not always travel forward in a straight, unbroken line. Sometimes it disappears for centuries, only to be rediscovered, almost by accident, wearing a slightly different name. Arctic and subarctic indigenous peoples, including various Inuit communities, developed poultice traditions using seal oil and animal fat, adapted specifically to an environment where almost no plants grow for most of the year. In a landscape offering little in the way of the herbs and leaves so central to poultice traditions elsewhere in the world, Arctic healers instead relied heavily on rendered seal and whale fat, sometimes combined with whatever mosses or lichens could be gathered during the brief summer thaw, applied to frostbite, wounds, and cracked skin caused by relentless cold and wind. This adaptation reflects one of the clearest examples in this entire history of medicine, shaped directly and completely by geography. since the same poultice traditions built around abundant Mediterranean herbs or tropical Pacific leaves simply could not exist in a landscape frozen for most of the year. Picture a healer working by the dim light of a seal oil lamp through the long Arctic winter, rendering fat slowly over a small flame, applying it carefully to skin cracked and burned not by fire but by cold. It is a powerful reminder that human ingenuity in the search for healing has never depended on abundance, only on the patient willingness to use, completely and resourcefully, whatever a given landscape actually provides. Persian and later broader Islamic medicine developed detailed classification systems for poultices, organizing remedies by their perceived warming, cooling, moistening, or drying qualities, a framework that influenced medical thinking across 3 continents for centuries. Physicians working within this tradition, building on Greek humoral theory but developing it substantially further, would select a specific poultice, not simply for its ingredient but for its classified quality, choosing a cooling, moistening preparation for a hot, dry condition and a warming, drying one for its opposite, a systematic logic applied with a rigor that shaped medical education from Spain to Central Asia during the medieval period. Hospitals in cities like Baghdad and Cairo during the height of the Islamic Golden Age maintained specialized staff and detailed formularies dedicated specifically to preparing these classified remedies correctly for each individual patient. Picture a physician in a bustling medieval Baghdad hospital, consulting a detailed formulary before selecting precisely the right poultice for precisely the patient in front of him, applying centuries of careful, systematic reasoning to a single warm compress. It is worth remembering that some of history's most organized, rigorous medical thinking was devoted entirely to a category of remedy as humble and ordinary as a poultice. Beeswax candle drippings and warmed resin seals were sometimes used across ancient Mediterranean households as an improvised protective layer over a freshly applied herbal poultice, sealing in warmth and moisture through the night. Because many poultices needed to remain in place for hours to be effective, ancient caregivers developed simple methods for keeping a moist dressing from drying out or slipping loose while a patient slept, and a thin layer of warmed wax or resin pressed gently over the outer cloth provided just enough of a seal to hold the remedy's warmth and moisture through a full night's rest. This small, practical detail reveals just how much accumulated craft went into ancient wound care beyond simply choosing the right herb, since keeping a remedy properly in place, hour after hour, was its own quiet skill developed over generations. Picture a mother pressing a final, careful layer of warm wax over a child's bandaged arm before blowing out the last candle, trusting the seal to hold steady until mourning far more than she trusted anything written down. It is worth remembering that ancient medicine was never only about which plant to choose, but about the whole patient architecture of care built carefully around it. Turpentine, distilled from pine resin, was used cautiously in small diluted amounts across 19th century American and European folk poultices for chest congestion, though it demanded a respect that many other remedies in this history did not. Unlike gentler plant remedies such as chamomile or comfrey, turpentine is genuinely potent and can cause real skin irritation or harm if used carelessly or in excessive concentration, which meant that folk traditions using it typically combined heavily with lard or tallow to dilute its strength before application to the chest, carried detailed and carefully passed down instructions about exactly how much was safe. Its inclusion in this long history is a useful reminder that not every traditional remedy was gentle by nature, and that real skill and caution, not just trust, was required to use some of them safely. Picture a grandmother mixing a small, careful amount of turpentine into a much larger measure of soft rendered fat, testing the mixture against her own wrist first before ever applying it to a child's chest. It is a fitting note near the end of our journey that even the oldest and most trusted healing traditions always demanded real, earned knowledge, not blind faith, to use safely and well. Olive oil served as the near-universal carrier base for poultices across the entire ancient Mediterranean world, binding countless individual remedies into a single spreadable form. Pressed from olives grown across Greece, Rome, Egypt, and the wider Mediterranean basin, this oil was blended with crushed herbs, ground minerals, and resins to create a smooth, workable paste that clung evenly to skin far better than water alone. And its own mild antioxidant compounds offered a small additional layer of genuine benefit beneath whatever more potent ingredient it was carrying. Olive trees themselves, capable of living and bearing fruit for many centuries, sometimes over 1,000 years, meant that the very oil pressed for a household's poultices might come from a tree already ancient by the time any single healer ever touched it. Picture a stone press turning slowly under human or animal effort, thick golden oil pooling beneath it, destined within the same day to be worked into a paste of crushed comfrey or chamomile for someone's aching shoulder. It is a fitting note near the close of this long history that behind so many of the individual remedies we have named, tonight sat this same quiet, golden thread, patiently holding each one together. Barley meal poultices were among the very oldest recorded remedies in Western medicine, appearing in Hippocratic writings as a gentle, all-purpose base for soothing inflamed or irritated skin. Ground barley, mixed with warm water or oil into a soft, archable paste, was valued by ancient Greek physicians for its mild, unassuming texture, useful both on its own and as a neutral base into which other more potent herbs could be blended, allowing a physician to adjust the strength of a remedy simply by changing what was mixed into the same basic barley foundation. Its widespread availability across the ancient Mediterranean world, as one of the most commonly cultivated grains of the era, meant that even the poorest households could prepare a basic poultice without needing access to rarer or more expensive ingredients. Picture a simple stone bowl of warm, pale paste sitting on a kitchen table in ancient Athens, unremarkable to look at, yet flexible enough to serve as the quiet foundation for countless different remedies, depending on what else the day required. It is a fitting thought to carry toward the end of our journey tonight, that some of the most enduring medicine in history was never the rarest or most dramatic ingredient, but simply the plainest, most dependable one, ready to become whatever was needed most. And now the stars begin to dim behind your thoughts, and the long, winding road we have walked together tonight, from the riverbanks of ancient Egypt to the high, thin air of the Andes, begins to grow soft and quiet, like a lamp slowly turned down for the night. We began beside the Nile, where honey and moldy bread quietly did work no one yet had words for, and we walked through Roman army camps where wine cleaned a soldier's wound before an herbal paste ever touched it. We knelt in the physic gardens of medieval monasteries, and we followed Hildegard von Bingen's careful hands among rows of sage and comfrey. We crossed oceans without meaning to, discovering that Aztec healers and Chinese physicians and indigenous nations across North America kept arriving, again and again, at strikingly similar truths about yarrow, about clay, about the quiet healing patience of the natural world. We stood on windswept peat bogs during the First World War, watching an ancient moss suddenly become a matter of wartime survival. We even lingered for a while beside the strange, sacred Kawakawa leaf of the Maori, and the sun-warmed vineyards where grape leaves once wrapped a farmer's bruised knee. There is nothing left to do now but rest. Let your eyes grow heavy, the way an old poultice slowly grows warm and still against tired skin. Let your breathing settle into something slow and even, in and out, like tide water easing gently across a quiet shore. You do not need to remember every plant, every name, every distant century we visited tonight. You only need to notice quietly that you are a part of this same long story, this same patient human search for comfort and healing that has never really stopped. Not once, in all the thousands of years since the very first hand reached for the very first leaf. If you enjoyed this gentle journey through the world's oldest medicine, I invite you to like, subscribe, or share a thought below. It helps others find their way here too, one sleepy soul at a time. If you are still awake, you may find another quiet journey waiting for you on the screen, whenever you are ready for it. But for now, there is nowhere else to be and nothing else to do. Sleep well and good night.